Let's go.
Yes, we are back. Rich is back from his holidays and we're back with the transfer talk rumor roundup. I had to jump on as soon as I got back just to talk all things Aston Villa because it seems like I've been away for a week. Yes, I jumped in and did a quick match reaction to the Newcastle game, a quick match preview with Kev, but it's not the same when you're out of action from it. And thank you to George and Martin for doing the fans forum on Tuesday night. But I had to just jump on because it seems like everything has happened with Aston Villa in terms of primarily outgoing. So I just wanted to give my thoughts on that and talk about a potential big incoming if we could pull this off. Make sure you hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. We are marching on to 6,000 subscribers, and get onto X as well at Villa Park Pod or Twitter. We always want to call it Twitter. Get on there and find out our latest competition and how you can get involved in winning an Aston Villa shirt of your choice. Right, enough of me rambling. Let's get into it. So, this last week has been mad in terms of outgoings. We've obviously seen the rumours, whether it be Ollie Watkins, whether it be Emi Martinez, whoever it might be, Morgan Rogers. We know that Aston Villa have had to make sales. We know we needed to trim the wage bill. And I guess 2 or 3 names that have always been circling around in terms of players leaving have been Jacob Ramsey and Leon Bailey. And this last week, we saw both of them depart the club. Jacob Ramsey to Newcastle, who have been long-term admirers of that player for around about 40 to 43 million pounds, I believe. I think it was a 38 million pound transfer fee with a 5 million additional in terms of add-ons that can be met, I guess, around appearances, international caps, that sort of trophy wins, that sort of thing. And I guess from my perspective, and I've been asked by numerous Newcastle supporters, I've been on the Loaded Mag and talked about it there, about my thoughts on Ramsey and what he might be able to bring to them and my thoughts on him as a player. And I do think he will probably, I'm sure, have an initial real burst of form with Newcastle, as numerous players do when they join a new club. They want to impress, they want to show what they can do. And he's got something that maybe Newcastle need in terms of driving runs with the ball through midfield. They have a really strong physical midfield with Joe Linton, with Bruno, and with Tonali. But maybe they don't have that ball carrying ability to get them territory, to get them distance through the central areas of the pitch. And Jacob Ramsey, as we know, can offer that in spades, particularly at home and in that atmosphere that St James's Park and the Newcastle fans generate. I think he will thrive. Where I think he is more inconsistent is away from home, and where it's a bit more where that you have the ball less, where you need to step up physically. I think that's where Jacob Ramsey could come unstuck. And there's been numerous times where he's been pushed off the ball too easy. He's drifted in games and he's not really stamped his authority of the ability that he has on those games. And then there's also the point about the injuries. Now, Newcastle have a player in Joe Willock who could be a really good player and has performed in fits and starts for them. And that's where I see that Jacob Ramsey situation. He will score goals. He will come forward in moments. But then once he gets a run of games, once you see him sort of start to get some rhythm, an injury will come into it or a bit of loss of form will come into it. And you'll never quite get to where everyone expects that he can get and wants him to get. And that is ultimately where I feel like Jacob Ramsey is. I'm sad to see him move on. I'm sad to see him leave, but for 40 million plus that we've managed to receive for him, I think it's a good fee. It is a shame, and ideally we would have wanted to keep him. But when you look at what academies are there to produce, and if you can generate huge sums of money from players that have came through the academy, 40 plus million for Jacob Ramsey, 100 million for Jack Grealish over the last 4, 5, 6 years, that is a that is a real success story, barring all the other sales that we've made, in terms of 20 million plus for Cameron Archer and all those other players. So it's sad to see, but I wish him the best. Hopefully we can move on. Hopefully we can move forward and we can continue with bringing players through our academy, but also improving the squad. Now, the second player on this picture, Leon Bailey, has left as well. He's joined AS Roma on loan with the option to buy for around about 19 million euros. I think the loan fee was about 3 million euros for this season. So you're talking 20 plus million euros if everything goes well. Now, it hasn't really boded well at the start, where he's taken an injury in training, apparently, and he's going to be out for another 2 to 3 weeks. That does not look great on us getting a fee for Leon Bailey and him starting his career at Roma on a good foot. So that is unfortunate, but that can always happen. We know that those type of things can happen. For myself, it's a tinge with a bit of sadness. I always had a real soft spot for Leon Bailey when numerous supporters were writing him off, saying he was terrible, saying he was just a crap player, saying he was a pub player. I knew the ability was there with Leon, and I could see it. I could see where he was just a confidence player. I could see the technical ability that he had, just the need to trust his body, just the need to be a little bit more physical and a bit more decisive in what he was doing. And that back end of the season of Unai Emery, the 22-23 season, where we finished 7th, he played a pivotal role in assisting and scoring some goals at that time. And then the following season, the 23-24 season, he was absolutely fantastic, scoring 10 goals, I believe, in the league and providing 9 assists. And many moments of real quality leadership, particularly that game against Lille in the quarterfinals away from home. And he played through the pain barrier, continued to put his body through it towards the end of that season, where he probably meant that he suffered last season because of that, because of pushing his body to the limits and beyond his limits in that season to get us into the Champions League. So I don't hold any grudges against Leon Bailey at all for last season. I think it was a frustrating one for him. He couldn't quite get his body into condition. And as we know, wingers are, by all intents and purposes, always inconsistent. And look, he was inconsistent. Sometimes he was brilliant. Sometimes he was terrible. Sometimes he looked like he could take it around 3 or 4 players. Sometimes it looked like he was going to trip over the ball. Sometimes he'd pass the ball backwards when you think he should be beating his man. Those are wingers. That's a winger for you. And I don't think that any other winger that we get, yes, we might get a season out of them. Yes, we might get 2 seasons out of them. And maybe that's something that we have to accept from wingers. Maybe that's just the way that we need to go. But I don't think anyone that will come in over the next season or next 2 seasons will produce any better, I don't believe, than Leon Bailey. So he goes with my best wishes. I wish him all the best. I don't think he'll return to Aston Villa. I think that's it for Aston Villa and Leon Bailey. But yes, you made a great song for us as well. And yeah, wish him all the best. And hopefully we can kick on and bring in 1 or 2 players to replace. And maybe that is Donyell Marlon. Maybe he will come through. Maybe it'll be Evan Guessand in a different position slightly. Maybe we can push on and continue. But we certainly need to replace these players. And one player who hasn't really gone away in terms of the rumour mill is Chelsea's Nicolas Jackson. Now, he has specifically stated his love for Unai Emery and how much Unai Emery helped his game and how he sort of came very close to signing for Aston Villa in the January of 2023, I believe. I think that was when he went to Chelsea. You might be able to tell me in the comments when it was specifically, but he certainly said he came very close to signing for Aston Villa because he has stated the time when he learned so much in his career, the most in his career was under Unai Emery. And maybe certain managers work well with certain players. Maybe certain positions that they put them into that gets the best out of that player. And I can certainly see him and Ollie Watkins complementing each other as opposed to competing with each other, which has generally happened with the forwards that we've had. You know, Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins couldn't really work together. John Duran and Ollie Watkins couldn't really work together. But Nicolas Jackson, I can see somewhere us working with him. And yes, he's a player that misses chances. Yes, he's a player that, again, is inconsistent. Sometimes he looks like the best player in the world. Sometimes he looks like he couldn't kick a football. So maybe we can iron out some of those inconsistencies with Nicolas Jackson. But I think there's a player in there. And the most important thing, we need pace. We need a threat in behind. We need something that is going to stretch teams, because looking at that Newcastle game, we looked way too pedestrian. We didn't have enough elements to surprise. We didn't have enough elements to beat teams in a different way. We had to try and calculate our moves, calculate our movements. And it's sometimes it's too easy to defend against. Whereas raw pace, raw power, raw direct ability, you can't defend against that. And then that opens up the other spaces for the likes of Yuri Tillemans, for the likes of Evan Guessan, for the likes of Morgan Rogers to run at people and then to take more shots. So for me, I think it's a good move. And looking at his SOFA score, yes, he had a frustrating season last season, scored 10 league goals, had 5 assists, but he was in and out of the team quite a lot. And he missed 19 big chances. So if you think that Ollie Watkins is going to infuriate Aston Villa fans, then I'm sure Nicolas Jackson is going to do the same. But it would be a scary front line once it gets firing. Morgan Rogers, Evan Guessan to come in, Daniel Marlon potentially as well. Then you've got Nicolas Jackson, Ollie Watkins. That is a real frightening proposition going forward. And potentially, we still haven't confirmed it, but potentially Marco Asensio as well, to add that bit of finesse, to add that bit of experience. That would be a real frightening prospect. Now, a couple of fullbacks news, slightly differing in I guess outcome. Alex Moreno looks to be heading to Girona on a 2-year contract, and doesn't seem to be a fee involved. I think there was news around about a £2 million deal or £2 million fee, but I believe it's in the end going to be somewhat of a free transfer, but Aston Villa are going to retain something like a 40% sell-on clause or sell-on fee, which sounds very strange for a 32-year-old. So whether something's been done beyond that time frame, who knows? But I think it gets another wage off the wage bill. It gives Moreno an opportunity to play football again, and potentially gives us a spot to maybe allow someone else to fill or to come in and fill. But like, we are pretty stacked in that left back area with Ian Maatsen and Luca Dean. So it was going to be difficult for Alex Moreno to get in. So again, he did really well when he came in and hit the ground running. If you remember that time frame, got a couple of bad injuries, never really got back to that form. But again, good player for Aston Villa and a real good signing at the time. And Andres Garcia looked like he was on his way back to Spain with Sevilla or Real Betis. But according to reports, Unai Emery has said that he wants to keep him around. He sees a future for him. Now, again, has that hand been forced a little bit with not being able to secure 1 or 2 targets? I don't know. Or has he been, impressed with what he saw with him towards the back end of last season? And yes, he's had a little bit of a knock this season to start with, but sees him coming through and maturing and doing a little bit better. Who knows? But we want to give him an opportunity, see how he is. And beyond that, Matty Cash. It was talked of this week that Nottingham Forest were looking at options to re-sign him. So does that leave the Andres Garcia situation more open in the fact that he could be utilized more and more if Matty Cash goes, and who then would come in as, I guess, the number 1 right back, if you like, or someone to compete with him? It does look like that is a bit dead in the water. Maybe it's more to do with a contract opportunity for Matty Cash. Maybe it's the agent sort of trying to force Villa's hand a little bit, because Nottingham Forest potentially turn their attention to an alternative right back option. But you just never know. If a bid comes in at a £30 million plus, I believe Aston Villa would snap any team's hand off for Matty Cash to then be able to reinvest. But again, we will have to wait and see. Another player who really does divide the fan base. There are many Villa fans who think he is terrible, we need to get rid. There are many other Villa fans who say he's still a good servant to Villa, but we need to upgrade. There are many Villa fans that say, why are we moaning at Matty Cash? He's an excellent right back. And if it wasn't for that cross on Saturday, that potentially that was a contributory factor to Ezri Konsa getting sent off. But look at the blocks that he produced. Look at the 1v1 defending. Look at how well he did against Harvey Barnes. That is the Matty Cash that Aston Villa fans who rate him really see, compared to the lack of attacking finesse that he might possess. So let me know your thoughts on Matty Cash, your thoughts on Moreno, your thoughts on Garcia, and then the departing Ramsey and Leon Bailey, and the prospect of Nicolas Jackson joining Aston Villa. I want to hear it. Let me know in the comments. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Head over to Twitter or X for the news on how you can win one of the latest Aston Villa shirts as well. We'll be back Thursday night, tonight, if you're watching on Thursday, for our big match preview for the Brentford game. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Thank you all for watching. And as always, remember, we all follow the Villa.